Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here with the Raptors Digest. Now, the Toronto Raptors have had one of the most wild summers in franchise history. There's been one of the biggest trades. We traded our superstar. There's been so many rumors, so much news and content circulating around the Toronto Raptors. Now, I mentioned in our last video I made on who's the most valuable Raptor that there hasn't been much news lately, that we're in August, September, not too much new NBA news circulating around this time of year. But as soon as I say that, a bombshell gets dropped on the Toronto Raptors media, another thing that we can all just eat up, and apparently the Toronto Raptors could acquire Jimmy Butler for a package centered around Serge Ibaka. And this report is coming per a page called Fadeaway World, so I'm not sure the credibility of them, but it's circling, it's a rumor that's circling around Raptors Reddit, the people, the fan bases, Twitter, and everybody's talking about Jimmy Butler. Now, I see that headline. I see that the Timberwolves might be willing to part ways with a borderline superstar, definitely a star, and they want the deal to be centered, not a throw-in of Serge Ibaka. They want the deal centered around Serge Ibaka. I pull up a lot of question marks. That seems very unrealistic as a objective NBA fan, as much as I'd love to see that trade happen. My rational brain really doesn't see a way that's possible. Now, the reason I'm holding out hope, and there's some optimism, I'm going to break this down for you guys, is me and Riker and I had the same perspective when the Kawhi Leonard news came out. When the Raptors said that they were throwing their name in the Kawhi Leonard sweepstakes, we thought it was just more rumors, more buzz, and more crazy headlines like this. And obviously, and you can look back to our videos, we said it was unreasonable to get Kawhi Leonard, and maybe it'd be more optimal that we could get LaMarcus Aldridge if the Spurs were willing to blow it up. But we got Kawhi Leonard, we got a top 3 NBA player, so crazier things have happened this summer. I don't know if a deal necessarily straight up Jimmy Butler for Serge Ibaka is going to happen, but it's definitely something to look at, and if there's news, we got to break it down. So, just on its face, trading Serge Ibaka and probably a role player for Jimmy Butler, that instantly makes our team so much better. Just to provide some context to how good Jimmy Butler is at basketball, you can just look at the Minnesota Timberwolves last season. With Jimmy Butler on the roster and playing healthy and playing most of the season, the Minnesota Timberwolves were the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. For most of the year, they had a tight grip on that 3rd seed in the tough Western Conference. Obviously, the West is known for being tougher than the East. And then, as soon as he goes out with a knee injury at the end of last year, the Minnesota Timberwolves almost fall out of the playoffs. They actually do. They fall out of the playoff picture. Jimmy Butler has to come back early, and then by the skin of their teeth, by the last game of the season, Jimmy Butler wasn't even cleared to be playing. He came back, and they won a deciding game with the Denver Nuggets for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. For a team to go from the 3rd seed to out of the playoffs, just off the back of one player, shows his impact on a team. If you look at Kawhi Leonard, he's obviously the best two-way basketball player in the NBA, a guy that has significant impact on the offense and defensive end. You could make an argument that Jimmy Butler is the number 2 guy in the league that, is a two-way guy, the number 2 two-way guy in the league, because he hits threes, he can play make, he can dribble, he can attack, drive, and he's also a lockdown defender. His whole MO coming into the NBA was being a defensive stopper, and that's how he cracked the Tom Thibodeau rotation for those Chicago Bulls. He was known as a filthy defender that would get into people, was athletic, strong, and could lock down 1-2s and 3s. If the Raptors could find a way to pair him with Kawhi Leonard on the wings, that could be the most devastating wing tandem on defense in NBA history. If you look at the Toronto Raptors as currently constructed, they're going to have one of the best defenses in the NBA. They have too much defensive talent not to be. Kawhi Leonard, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka on a good day. The list goes on. Danny Green. If we were to add Jimmy Butler into that mix, that makes us even more lethal on that side of the floor and is especially valuable going up against teams like the Celtics and the Warriors, having another clamp god to lock down those superstars. And defensively, it's going to be great. Defensively, if we got Jimmy Butler, we can talk for days about how our defense would improve just by sliding him into the lineup. But where his impact will be most felt is on the offensive end. Last season, while sharing the ball with Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, Jimmy Butler averaged 22 points per game, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds for the Minnesota Timberwolves last season. He would be a perfect complement to Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry if we were to plug him into the 2-guard position right now. And not just because of those stats. Jimmy Butler is going to get his numbers. He's going to put the ball in the hole. He's going to create. He's going to facilitate, get all those rebounds. But the Golden State Warriors have shown the key to success, the key to winning a championship in the NBA. And it's to have as many guys on the court that can play defense, play lockdown D, hit threes, while also being capable of putting the ball on the floor and create for others. Those are the skills that are needed by a player that's going to start on a championship team. If you look at the Toronto Raptors roster now, and you look at who could possibly start at the shooting guard position this season, and we don't know the lineups, we don't know what Nick Nurse is going to craft, but the guys that are likely in contention for that position are Danny Green, OG Anunoby, DeLon Wright, and possibly Norman Powell if he can get back on his A game. Those 4 guys are not proven and capable to have all of those skills. Danny Green is a nice 3-and-D guy, but doesn't really have the slashing capability. OG Anunoby, he can shoot the 3, he can lock down, defend people, but unfortunately he doesn't have the handle just yet, and we're hoping that's something he can develop sooner rather than later and become the all-star we all know he's going to be. That might be an exaggeration, but he's not there yet. He's not even close to Jimmy Butler's realm just yet. Then you have DeLon and Norm. Norm is a complete basket case. We don't really know what's going to happen with Norman Powell. If Norm can come back to form, I think he could maybe have the most potential to fill those skills, but there's a lot of stuff we have to see from Norm before we hand him the keys to the starting shooting guard position just yet. I don't really see DeLon breaking free from his bench mob role. So Jimmy Butler would just be so valuable to bring in and be a surefire player that can create for others, shoot threes, and play defense. Just slide him in there. He'd be a perfect complement and a thing that we could definitely use in our starting lineup. It's not necessarily something the Raptors need to address, in my opinion, as maybe we don't have that creating guy in our starting unit, but I think for the end of games and when the game going gets tough, we can run Fred at the 2-guard position, even though he's a bit undersized, because he fulfills those 3 skills despite being a smaller stature, and we can be perfectly fine with Fred VanVleet closing games. But Jimmy Butler's an NBA All-Star, and he would fulfill that role very, very well. And another underrated part of this move, another thing that's kind of crazy about this deal, which is kind of baffling me, is that we could get rid of Serge Ibaka's lucrative contract, his $21 million this season, his $23 million next year. We could send that straight to Minnesota, and it opens up playing time for Pascal Siakam. I know a lot of people were arguing that we should just salary dump Serge in order to unclutter our front court and find a way to get rid of his lucrative contract. I think that might be an over-exaggeration because Serge still has some talent, but my God, if we could get Jimmy Butler for Serge Ibaka and get rid of the negative sides of Serge Ibaka while bringing in Jimmy Butler, that would be a huge win for the Toronto Raptors. I think people are grossly underestimating the value of Pascal Siakam and the step forward that I think he's going to take this season. If you look at Pascal Siakam's just improvement, even over the last year, during the year when you don't even have time to work on your skills and work on your game, he improved so much over that 5-month stretch. If you remember watching Pascal Siakam at the beginning of the season shoot threes, it felt like he was shooting about 5% for most of the year. But he amped up. He ended up shooting in the 30s for the second half of the season, which is a significant improvement to where he was at the beginning. And his handle just looked much, much tighter. We did a whole video on Pascal Siakam and how good we think he's going to be next year. So I think if he was given the reins as the Raptors' starting power forward, or even just getting more minutes, because we don't know the lineups that Nick Nurse is going to use, because he's talking like he's going to test everything out. I think that would be a huge positive for Pascal Siakam, and even guys like OG Anunoby and CJ Miles. The Raptors are going to be best when we're running small ball lineups. And we have Jonas who's going to demand minutes. Jonas is proved to be our best big man, I think, inarguably last season, just because the way he developed that three-point shot and his size, and he's improved on the defensive end. I think Jonas is our go-to big man. So we don't want to be forced to be throwing minutes to other big lumbering guys. It's not the direction of the current NBA, and this move just gets me more and more excited the more I'm thinking about it. But my God, if Masai Ujiri could pull this trade, if he could fleece the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jimmy Butler, we'll have to make another tribute video to Masai Ujiri. I just made one. Check out the last video. I ranted on 18 minutes by Masai Ujiri is the most valuable Toronto Raptor. I'd make a complete another one, and I'd make it 2 hours if he could pull off this trade. If he could send out Serge Ibaka, and even though he's kind of talented, he's extremely inconsistent and he's extremely old looking. We're not going to get into his actual age, but he's extremely old looking. And bring back Jimmy Butler, a 4-time All-Star. That would be the biggest fleece in NBA history. And I just hope these rumors are true. I hope these rumors are true, and we'll keep you guys updated on if anything actually comes of this. We didn't think in our wildest dreams that we'd get Kawhi Leonard, so who knows, maybe Masai could somehow get Jimmy Butler. But let us know what you think. Do you want Jimmy Butler? Obviously you want Jimmy Butler. Could we possibly get him? Is there any chance he laces up in a Raptors uniform next season? Let me know in the comments below. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. The season's just around the corner, so the news and everything's going to start picking up again. So the videos will be starting to drop more consistently as we inch closer to the NBA season. But you're the best for listening this far. And imagine if we go into next season with Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard on the roster. That'd be absolutely ridiculous. It's like a dream. It's a pipe dream right now. Hopefully it can happen. Masai, please make it happen. You guys are the best for listening. Cheers.